You know that moment, standing outside your boss's office, maybe your heart's doing a little drum solo,
Hmm.
all because you need to ask for time off. It feels like it should be so simple.
But it really isn't always, is it? It can feel surprisingly complex, even a bit, well, nerve-wracking for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. What is it, do you think, that makes this such a common sort of stumbling block?
Well, it truly is like a universally relatable work thing. And I think often it's less about the request itself and more about, how you frame it
Okay.
and maybe the underlying dynamics that come into play. Lots of people feel like they're asking for a big favor, not exercising a right they might have.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's less about the what's and more the how.
Precisely.
Okay. Well, this deep dive is really custom tailored for you, our listener. We're drawing insights from a series of real-world scenarios and some practical language guides we've gathered.
Yeah, and our mission today really is to unpack the art of requesting leave. We want to help transform what can feel like an awkward chat into hopefully a smooth, successful interaction.
Right.
We'll pull out some key phrases, look at strategic approaches, and maybe even find some surprising insights into the psychology of polite communication at work.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So
Hmm.
our first scenario, it kind of throws us right into a relatable problem with someone named Liv.
Ah, yes, live.
She needs time off for her sister's wedding. It's overseas, sounds lovely,
Hmm.
but she's hit a snag. She's, quote, used up all her vacation days this year.
Oof, yeah, that's a common hurdle, isn't it?
Yeah.
You get to a point where the standard paid leave just isn't an option anymore.
Exactly. So what happens next? Well, Liv goes to her boss, Mr. McKenna,
Okay.
hoping she might be able to take some unpaid leave.
Right, the only option left, really.
And it's not a small request. She's asking for September 1st until the 30th. That's a whole month.
Wow, 30 days. Okay. So, Mr. McKenna's reaction, how was that described?
Well, the source says he sounded hesitant. Saying, well, I guess so.
Uh-huh. A bit reluctant, maybe.
Yeah. And he immediately brings up the need for at least 2 months' notice.
Okay, so straight into the practicalities.
Right. It definitely implies it's a bit of a challenge for him. And the source material even notes she wanted to take off for 30 days, so I guess that is a long time.
Well, yeah, 30 days is a long time, even for something important like a wedding overseas. It immediately puts the employer in a slightly tricky position, doesn't it, planning-wise?
It really does. That length of absence, it can definitely raise eyebrows. It creates immediate planning concerns for a manager, impacts workflow, who covers what.
Absolutely, resource allocation, all that.
So to navigate these conversations better, it really helps to be clear on some key vocabulary. Our sources lay out a few terms that are pretty essential here.
Okay.
Let's start with vacation days.
Right. So vacation days, pretty simple. Those are your paid personal leave days, the time you can take for, well, a vacation.
And the sources mention these vary quite a bit.
Hugely. Yeah, our material highlights that. We saw examples like 10 days, 15 days, even 20 days in some places or countries. It really shows how different workplaces and even cultures handle this benefit.
Interesting. Okay, and Liv's sister's wedding was overseas.
Yeah, basically just means traveling over the ocean to another country. Simple definition, but it often implies, longer travel time, maybe big time zone differences, more complex logistics for the employee usually.
Gotcha. Then there's unpaid leave.
Which is exactly what Liv needed, right? Time off without pay. Because her paid vacation days were all gone.
Right, and that definitely changes the equation for an employer, doesn't it? It's not a standard entitlement in the same way.
Not at all. It's usually discretionary.
Okay, and finally, a really crucial term, especially given Mr. McKenna's reaction, notice.
Ah, yes. Notice. It's all about giving information in advance. Like Mr. McKenna's saying he needed at least 2 months' notice.
Right.
But our documents also mention other examples, like needing 15-day notice or a 20-day notice for shorter leave or maybe 4 weeks in advance if you were, say, quitting a job.
Cool.
The main point is giving notice, especially advance notice, is vital. It just helps everyone plan for your absence. Lets the team, your boss, figure out coverage, minimize disruption.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But what if someone's in a situation where they genuinely can't give that much notice? Life happens, right?
That's a good question. The sources we looked at really emphasize the advance planning as the ideal, definitely.
Okay.
But the implication for shorter notice seems to be, well, it requires even more careful preparation of your work handoff. You'd need to be super organized.
Right. Double down on the planning.
Yeah, and probably lean more heavily on those soft skills, the
Mhm.
politeness, to sort of mitigate the inconvenience for everyone. It points towards that smoother request model we should probably talk about next.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue. Because this brings us to a really contrasting scenario from our sources. One that shows a much um, smoother, more proactive way to ask for leave.
Okay, the positive example.
Exactly. So in this second dialogue, someone is also planning to visit family overseas.
Yeah.
They're hoping for at least 2 weeks of their vacation days,
Mm-hmm.
plus an additional week as unpaid leave. So still a mix, still a decent amount of time.
Right, 3 weeks total. But what's really striking here is the level of preparation this person did before even asking.
Totally. They didn't just check their vacation day balance, which, is step one, obviously.
Always check the balance.
Right. But they went way further. They started putting together a list of what I'll need to pass off while I'm away.
Proactive, I like it.
And they even thought about who might take over their main responsibilities.
Ah, suggesting solutions, not just presenting the problem.
Exactly. And not just that. They offered to set up some time with them in advance and even offered to do a bit of training.
Wow, okay. That's really thinking it through from the team's perspective.
It really is. And you can see the payoff immediately in the boss's reaction. It's so different from Mr. McKenna's.
How so?
The boss says things like, "That sounds manageable," and "Good idea, giving advance notice definitely helps with planning."
Okay, much more positive.
Yeah, they clearly see the effort. They say you're definitely being thorough, and they sound confident, saying it'll be a smooth transition with this level of preparation.
See, that second dialogue, it just perfectly illustrates the power of that prep work, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It completely changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. It shifts it, like you said, from a kind of difficult ask to more of a collaborative, supported plan.
Yeah, and the benefits aren't just for the boss. The material points out this approach allows the employee to have a true break, come back fully refreshed.
Which is good for everyone.
Right. And it even opens the door to maybe making the trip an annual thing. It becomes a win-win.
That level of proactive thinking, it really reframes the whole thing. It's not just asking for a favor anymore. It's presenting a well-thought-out solution. You're showing you've considered the impact on the business.
Minimizing the hassle factor.
Exactly, which is what managers want to see. It demonstrates your commitment to the team, even when you're planning to be away.
Okay, so we see why preparation matters. Let's zoom in a bit on the actual words, the communication techniques that make these conversations work. Mastering the phrases themselves can make a huge difference.
Definitely. Language choice is key.
So when you first start the conversation, the sources suggest something simple like, "Do you have a second?"
Yeah, that's just a really nice, respectful way to check if your boss is actually free to talk. Shows you value their time, you're not just barging in.
Right. Are there variations?
Oh yeah, the sources give a few, like, do you have a minute? Or even more casual, very natural sounding, do you have a sec?
Do you have a sec? Yeah, use that. Okay, so you've started the chat, you've made your request.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to sort of seek agreement, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Liv actually used a really good pattern for this. Would you be okay with that?
That is a great pattern. It's brilliant because it's not demanding at all. It's inviting collaboration, it's asking for their approval, it makes them feel respected, part of the decision.
Yeah, it gives them agency.
Exactly. And there are other ways to phrase it too, like, are you all right with that? Or maybe, will you be okay with this?
Okay.
They all kind of do the same job, checking for your boss's buy-in politely without being confrontational.
This all comes back to politeness, doesn't it? Which raises a big question. Why does politeness matter so much here?
Mm-hmm.
Especially, as the material noted, for non-native English speakers who might already feel a bit nervous. What's the deeper thing going on?
Now that's where it gets really interesting, psychologically speaking. Politeness, and especially using slightly indirect phrasing, it's crucial in English when you're asking for something that might inconvenience someone else.
Like time off.
Exactly. It's not just about being nice for the sake of it. It's about minimizing the perceived cost or the imposition on the other person.
Okay. Minimizing the cost. How?
Well, psychologically, it taps into something called face saving. Basically, you're allowing the other person, your boss in this case, to maintain their sense of autonomy, their status. You're not forcing their hand.
Okay. So they don't feel backed into a corner.
Right. And that makes them much more open to actually agreeing because they don't feel pressured or disrespected.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's respecting their position and their power to grant the request.
Precisely.
Looking back at Liv's dialogue, even though her request was for a really long time,
Yeah, the 30 days.
she instinctively used some very polite, indirect phrases.
Yeah.
Like starting with, "Well, I was just wondering."
Right. That immediately signals, I'm about to ask for a favor, not I'm making a demand. It softens it.
Yeah. And she also said, I was just hoping that, which, as our material points out, means it doesn't sound too strong.
Hmm. She very carefully avoided a blunt, I want to take some time off.
And even when she mentioned the dates, she used I was thinking of, instead of a more direct, I want September 1st to 30th.
Exactly. So what's the big takeaway from all this phrasing?
Well, it seems like those really direct statements, like I want to take time off, they can just sound, well, too strong, maybe impolite, even rude in English in this kind of situation.
Yeah, when you're asking for flexibility or making a request that impacts someone else's plans or resources, that directness can backfire.
So the indirect, softer phrasing.
Mm.
It's about showing respect.
It conveys respect, absolutely. Respect for their time, their authority, their autonomy. It makes the request easier for them to hear and ultimately easier to accept
Yeah.
because it feels less like an order and more like a collaborative discussion. It's a subtle but really important social dance.
Wow. Okay, this deep dive has really unpacked the art of asking for time off, hasn't it?
I think so.
We've seen just how important that advance notice is, understanding the different kinds of leave, paid, unpaid,
Yeah, the vocabulary matters.
and the undeniable power of really thinking ahead, planning proactively for who's going to cover for you.
Definitely. That preparation piece is huge.
But maybe the most fascinating part is exploring that subtle yet really powerful psychological impact of using polite, thoughtful communication when you make these requests.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? How a seemingly simple, everyday request, like asking for time off, can actually reveal so much about what makes professional communication effective, and maybe even about human psychology.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, consider this. We live in this increasingly interconnected world, right? Where the lines between work and personal life can get pretty blurry sometimes.
Definitely.
So, how might mastering this art, the art of asking politely and effectively for what you need, not just time off, but anything in a professional context, how might that not only boost your career, but also genuinely improve your well-being? Something to think about. What stands out to you, our listener, about how communication really shapes your professional life?